We are at the point of the college football season where the college football playoff race intensifies, and we are focused on the college football playoff race. Johnny Talk Sports here to bring my Week 10 college football predictions. These next 6 weeks are going to be a fight to the finish in the race to see which 4 teams will be competing for the national championship. But before we get to my Week 10 predictions, the first college football playoff rankings come out tomorrow night on ESPN. So it's going to be something to really want to pay attention to see how these rankings are going to be. Global Sports Commentator and I, we were on a stream together on this channel. We talked about an hour and a half about college football playoff scenarios, what we think, we did our top 10. I had mine up on the board behind me. We also went over some scenarios on the board behind me. So you might want to check that out to kind of get yourself prepared for the first rankings of the season. It's going to be must-watch TV. And we also talked about what kind of things the committee might do, whether they set some stuff up to help a certain team or to hinder another team. We also talked about those. We also talked about the Heisman race a little bit. We kind of talked about multiple different things. So I will put the link of that in the description box down below if you missed it and want to check it out to kind of get yourself prepared for that. It's a good hour and a half worth of stuff. I mean, Global Sports Commentator did a really good job. He gave out a lot of good information. I feel like it was kind of the best. He actually was challenging me at that point. In my mind, I felt challenged by him because he was giving such good information. He talked very well. He talked very calmly as well. I think he's a very talented YouTuber himself. And he's got potential to be a great YouTuber, just like anybody else. I honestly think he's better than me sometimes. So you might want to check him out as well. Anyway, Week 10 college football predictions. Last week, like I said, 7-3 overall, straight up, and 3-2 against the spread, which is a pretty solid week, kind of a win in my book. But I want to do a little bit better this week because I know what I'm capable of. I've had some good weeks before. I've had some bad weeks before. So let's see if we can do better. So first game this week, I believe it's a Thursday night game, Temple versus number 9 UCF. And I know these aren't the real rankings. They're based on what the AP poll was. But I didn't want to wait until Tuesday night to do the predictions video because I'm also planning on doing a reaction video for the first college football playoff rankings. So I'm planning on doing that as well. So I didn't want to, and NFL picks and stuff, didn't want to have 3 videos in a day. So first matchup, Temple versus number 9 UCF. And Temple, they pulled off an upset against Cincinnati earlier this season. And Temple is very well in that group of 5 race. They can beat UCF. They could have a good chance to try to fight for that top spot in the group of 5 to get an automatic New Year's 6 bid. Which, to keep in mind, not only are we focusing on the college football playoff race, but we're also watching the group of 5 race. Because we've got teams like UCF, Houston, South Florida, Temple, Cincinnati, all still in the group of 5 race. Even Utah State's in there, as they were ranked in the AP poll. Fresno State is in the race. They are in the AP poll. So we got a lot of group of 5 teams that are fighting for that one spot to get a group of 5 bid. Well, to get the automatic New Year's 6 bid for the group of 5. So not only do we keep an eye on that, but we also got to keep an eye on this race too, because there's 2 different races to keep an eye out on. But I think UCF wins this game. I think UCF is coming off a bye week. They're going to have the home field. And I think UCF will be able to win this. Maybe not as handily as what a lot of people think, but I think they'll pull it out in the end. I like UCF in this matchup to keep not only their undefeated season alive, but their winning streak alive. I like UCF. Next matchup, we got Pittsburgh, who's played tough against Syracuse and Notre Dame, but they just couldn't get the job done. Versus number 23, Virginia, who was doing pretty well. And I'm going to pick Virginia. In fact, Bryce Perkins is doing pretty well at quarterback so far. He's being pretty solid for the Virginia Cavaliers. And Virginia could be the team that ends up facing Clemson in the ACC championship game. I think that'd be an interesting matchup to watch. To go up against the big dog in the ACC, a national champion co-head coach and Dabo Sweeney. That'd be an interesting matchup. And I'm going to root for Virginia, not only in this game, but for the rest of the season. I think they got a good chance to beat Virginia Tech this year. And I think Virginia wins this matchup as well. I think Virginia keeps surprising people. I like Virginia. Next, we've got number 19, Iowa versus Purdue. And Purdue is coming off an emotional, they were coming off an emotional victory last week. They kind of came out flat the next week, which sometimes happens to teams. When they get a big victory, they just tend to be flat the very next week. It doesn't matter what sport it is. And Iowa, they're coming off a heartbreaking loss to Penn State, and their playoff chances were eliminated last week with 2 losses. And right now, I think Iowa just needs to salvage what there's left of the season. Get yourself a decent bowl game. Anything can still happen in the Big Ten. Northwestern, Wisconsin, they can still drop some more games. And I like Iowa. I think Iowa needs to realize that there is still some season left to be played. Just salvage what you can. You can find yourself in a pretty decent bowl game if you keep fighting. I think that's what the Hawkeyes are going to do. Next, we got number 24 Boston College, who was back in the rankings. They were in the rankings earlier this season, but they weren't there that long, which they lost Purdue when they were ranked versus Virginia Tech. And I think it's another short stay for Boston College in the rankings, because I think Virginia Tech is going to win this matchup. I feel like it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a one-possession game. But I think the difference is the crowd in Lane Stadium. I also think that the quarterback play will be a huge difference. Boston College's defense has got to get some pressure. But I think Virginia Tech wins this game in the trenches. I think Virginia Tech wins by 3 points. Next, we've got number 14 Penn State going to the Big House versus number 5 Michigan. Michigan is one of those teams that controls their own destiny in the college football playoff race. And Penn State, they're coming off a close victory. They're coming off a close victory over Iowa. If one thing went differently in the Iowa-Penn State game, I think Iowa probably wins that one. And I think Michigan will realize what they have left still to play for. I think they will win. I don't think it'll be by that much. I think it's going to be pretty tough for the Wolverines, but I think their defense will rise to the occasion because it couldn't last year in this game. And I think Michigan wins. I don't think they're going to win convincingly, but I think they might win maybe by a score of like 27-23. You can't allow Trace McSorley to have a good game like he did against Ohio State. Because if Trace McSorley has a good game, if you let Trace McSorley beat you with his feet and his arm, Penn State can win this game. But I think Michigan, I think their defense will rise up to the occasion when it needs to, kind of like when Ohio State's defense rose to the occasion when it had to in the last 2 minutes of that game. Hopefully there's no dumb play call on 4th and 5 this time. Hopefully they at least try to fight it out. But I think Michigan wins it in the very end and keeps their college football playoff hopes alive. Next, we got number 6 Georgia versus number 11 Kentucky. This is another elimination game. Well, a quote-unquote elimination game in the college football playoff race. As a loser, will have 2 losses on the season and will be eliminated from the college football playoff race. And Kentucky has had a great season so far. It's been phenomenal. They're another one of those teams that is surprising. They're probably the surprise team of the year so far. Because the SEC is stacked this year. Running back Benny Snell, he has been something else so far this year. However, I feel like this is the reality check for Kentucky. This is the week where they probably fall back to earth. I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia wins by at least 13 at the very least. I think the Bulldogs are going to dominate. They're coming off a dominating win against Florida. And I think that is going to be the momentum builder that Georgia needs. And I think Georgia's right back in the college football playoff race, especially with Alabama and Georgia playing this week. Alabama and LSU playing on Saturday night, which is our game of the week. Especially if LSU loses that game, they're going to probably find themselves right back in that top 5 or 4. As long as Georgia takes care of business, I think they could win it. If Georgia wins out, they'll get in. So they're one of those teams that controls their own destiny. And we'll talk more about that once we get to it, probably tomorrow with the college football playoff reaction video. We'll go over more scenarios then. But I think the Bulldogs will win. I think Kentucky kind of gets pushed back down to earth. Next, we got number 12 West Virginia versus number 15 Texas. This is somewhat of an elimination game. Penn State versus Michigan is also somewhat of an elimination game. So this is somewhat of an elimination game. Texas could play spoiler to West Virginia. West Virginia's coming off a bye week, and Texas, they're coming off a heartbreaking loss against Oklahoma State. They almost had the comeback, but they just couldn't come back in the very end. And I think Texas is still a little stung up by that. I think West Virginia is going to get this win and keep the Big 12's playoff hopes alive in somewhat. I know Oklahoma's still in the race for the Big 12, but for the Big 12 to for sure get a team in, Oklahoma, West Virginia, they've got to face each other when they've only have one loss. The Big 12 Conference Championship winner has to have one loss to be considered the playoff race, in my opinion. I think West Virginia somewhat keeps the Big 12's playoff hopes alive. I like the Mountaineers. Next, we got number 3 Notre Dame versus Northwestern. Notre Dame, they are undefeated so far. They've got convincing wins over Michigan, and they've beaten Virginia Tech on the road, and they've also beaten Stanford. I know Stanford's not that good of a team, though, but Stanford was at number 7 when they beat them, which is a thing that people always mislead. They mislead like the future, like after a game happens. They always mislead it. And I'll talk more about that in the playoff videos as well. And Northwestern, they're coming off a big victory over Wisconsin, a huge upset victory. They've competed pretty tough against Michigan, but they couldn't get it done in the very end. Northwestern has really recovered nicely ever since the 1-2 start. They didn't start the season off well, but Northwestern is not a team to take lightly right now. And especially with senior quarterback Clayton Thorson under center, the senior leadership of Northwestern, I think, will be the difference in this game. That's right. I'm calling for the upset. I think the Wildcats are going to pull off the upset against Notre Dame. Kind of like what I said last week. I think Notre Dame is the Miami of this season, a team that starts off hot, that gets a couple good wins, and people are sold on them, some people aren't, and then they end up falling apart at the end of the season. I think that's what the Irish are going to do. I think the Northwestern Wildcats will upset the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You heard it here first. Next, we got Stanford versus Washington, and in preseason, this could have been a matchup that affected the College Football Playoff race, and now both these teams, they just got to salvage what they can. There's still some hope to win the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 is still wide open, but the College Football Playoff is out of the question for these two teams. But I think Washington will win this one. I just think Jake Browning is going to redeem himself after last week against Cal, and I think he's going to respond. I like Washington in this matchup. And finally, the game of the week, number 1 Alabama versus number 4 LSU. This is definitely going to have an impact on the College Football Playoff race. If Alabama wins this one, it could be safe to put them in the College Football Playoff. Because even if they lose the SEC championship game, I still think they get in. And for number 4 LSU, if they can win this one, could they solidify themselves in the College Football Playoff? So this is going to be a game that affects the College Football Playoff tremendously. In fact, this could be, the winner of this game, I think you can put in the College Football Playoff. I know nobody's really a lock, but if Alabama loses one down the road after LSU, I think this will get in. And if LSU wins this one, I think they can get in. So the way I see this, I think Tua is going to actually have to play in the fourth quarter this week. This would be the first time that Tua Tagovailoa has played in the fourth quarter all season. I think LSU keeps it close. Surprisingly, it's kind of surprising to me that Alabama is already a 14.5 to 15-point favorite in this ball game. I feel like LSU is going to be able to keep the LSU defense. I think they'll keep them in the game for quite a bit. I feel like this is a very hostile environment for Alabama to play in. Tua Tagovailoa has not had a road test like this before, and I think it's going to be challenging for him in the beginning. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of content creators, even people like online or on social media, that Alabama's going to blow them out. Alabama's going to blow them out. It's not going to be a game. It's not going to be a game. I think this is going to be a game. I think LSU is going to keep them in this game long enough for them to have a chance to win. But I think in the end, Tua Tagovailoa, I think he has a Heisman moment in this game. If Tua Tagovailoa ends up winning the Heisman Trophy, a highlight in this game is going to probably be the difference between him or Kyler Murray winning the Heisman Trophy. And I think Alabama wins this game. I think they win 20-14. I think it's a 6-point victory for the Crimson Tide, and they really get tested in this one, but they pull it out in the very end. So those are my Week 10 college football predictions. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you back later for the, well, I'll see you tomorrow for the College Football Playoff ranking reaction video. I don't know if I'm going to go live or not, probably not. And I will also see you for the NFL predictions. So I'll see you tomorrow for those two videos. I will see you next time.